Okay, we are live now. I got Matt C. He's joining us for Bible study today. I know a bunch of people may not actually be able to come out today. I think Yoav is giving his apologies. So for last week, that's all right, man. Come out this week though. I'm sure you're going to have lots of opinions on it, and maybe even just talk about tabernacles. Are you aware, Matt, that it's a holiday right now in Israel?
Is it Yom Kippur right now?
No, that was on the weekend. It's Tabernacles, Sukkot,
Oh, great.
the
Even
Feast
better.
of Booths. Yes. So
Lovely.
this is a time where there's a lot of partying.
Mm.
Woo! And if you're
Excellent.
in a Jewish area, they'll like build a structure. Like one of the synagogues near me used to have one outside. Actually, exemptions was made in Toronto for what kind of things you could do on your balcony because there was enough Jews in one area that built them on their balconies.
Oh, fun.
like yeah.
Yeah, you do
And
like
when they first
zoning
started doing it.
restrictions. Yeah.
Yeah, because they like built I'm sure to the Gentiles, they're like, what are they doing? Is that like a fort? What is happening right now?
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. Yeah, well this is certainly a holiday pregnant with meaning. Excited about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it's one of those things that Don has made it. Hooray. Hi, Don. Yeah, I'm very passionate about the Feast of Tabernacles. And
Mm.
I'm very happy to talk to people about it. But I'm just like, it's one of those things like when you're autistic, you have to make sure you don't talk about trains for too long. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's
No,
like, I really
we
have
all
to
have our
pay
special
attention.
interests. Yeah.
Yes. Are other people actually interested in this topic? Or am I
Mhm.
boring someone talking about John Brown? I did that too many times. My wife was like, they did not care about that. And I was like, dang it. I think it's
Oh,
so
really?
interesting though. Because
About
I'm
the early
Canadian.
abolitionist
Yes.
John
Yeah.
Brown?
See, because I'm
Yeah.
Canadian. And so I never knew about this guy. Then I
Mm.
talked to people about him. Sandy has joined us.
Oh,
Excellent. Hello,
great.
Sandy.
Hi, David.
Hi,
Hi, Matt.
Sandy.
Oh, she's frozen. Oh, no, she's just a
Yes.
little bit robot-y. So no, I can hear you now. You're good. You're good, Sandy. You're good. I think we should jump into the scripture now that we have enough people here. And Yoav is watching, though he does not want to be on unless he has something specific to say. So he'll jump in, say a truth bomb, and then throw a bit of smoke and then flee the room. So we're going into a section that a lot of people have heard of called like with David and Jonathan. It'll sound like bits we've done a little bit before, but we're going to get much deeper, and then we're going to have some controversial conversation that you might be expecting. Yes. So Sandy, would you read for us, please? Oh, I lost the top. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so I was going to say, there it is. Okay. Then David fled from Naioth in Ramah and came and said before Jonathan, "What have I done? What is my guilt? And what is my sin before your father that he seeks my life?" And he said to him, "Far from it. You shall not die. Behold, my father does nothing either great or small without disclosing it to me. And why should my father hide this from me? It is not so." But David vowed again, saying, "Your father knows well that I have found favor in your eyes." And he thinks, "Do not let Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, there is but a step between me and death."
This is so dramatic. Isn't that that's a great little, there is a step between me and death. Very, very poetic. Let's just open up just the beginning of this. I see all these signs that David is a good dude, that he's a righteous dude. And one of those is that he says, "What have I done? What is my guilt?" I don't know. I don't know if I am incorrect in doing this, but it feels to me that that is not a rhetorical question. I don't think it's like, what have I done? Like, I didn't do anything. I think David is legit in trying to understand what kind of offense he's done.
Mhm.
That seems like David has a quality that Saul does not have, which is that David is very interested in repenting. Whereas Saul will be called on things and he'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about, right? David's response when Nathan the prophet will confront him in 2 Samuel is not, what are you talking about? I did nothing wrong. Well, technically, which is what Saul's explanation was whenever he's been called on anything. David just goes, it was me. And he like breaks down crying and repenting and all that other stuff. I don't know. Does it feel like I'm going too far on that? Or how would you interpret it?
What are you thinking?
I've just always been taking it to be, an actual question.
That's
Never
good.
occurred to me you could be saying it any other way.
Yeah.
What someone once said, was it AJ Pinker, that the what distinguishes a genuine believer from a false one isn't the absence of sin, but grieving over it, the repentance of it.
Mm-hmm.
Feels appropriate here.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, and then the other concern is that Jonathan and David, their friendship is already known, so maybe it won't be revealed. Okay, Yoav. Okay, there he is. Yoav, what? Please set us straight. Is David being sarcastic when he says, what have I done? What is my guilt?
I was paying attention to the small word before. David said, before Jonathan, and what have I seen before your father? He didn't say it to Jonathan. He said it before. And what is the context in which you say something before somebody else? When you accept him as a judge. You sit before a judge and you make your claim. So David says to Jonathan, you be my judge. What have I done that your father judges me to death? So certainly, sincerely accept the judgment of the king.
Yes. Okay. No, that's a very, very good point. And that notion, that idiom gets used all throughout Scripture, the notion of sitting as a position of authority. We think of someone standing over someone, but repeatedly the ability to sit is a position of authority. Thank you, Yoav. Yoav, are you celebrating at all this week? Do you do it? Do you get guilted into fasting?
Today, we are all celebrating very, very happily. There was a discussion between Jacob and Chezi. Will this holiday be joyous or not? Chezi predict, because there are reasons to be said on this Yahrzeit, and Chezi predicted that it will be a joyous holiday, and indeed it is.
It's also interesting because. Yeah, sorry. Well, that's interesting because Sukkot you are commanded to be joyful, right?
Yeah.
It's not the one where you're commanded to afflict yourself. You're commanded to be joyful. Yeah,
but the situation in Israel is that the weather outside at night is fine. It's warm. Everybody has their tabernacles outside. All the kids are playing around until a very late. There's no school tomorrow, so all the kids are playing around in and around the tabernacles, and they making decorations, and they're enjoying themselves, kids being together, because it is the togetherness of when you're together with your neighbors and your neighbor kids, you're not stuck in your home. Everybody's together. Everybody. The core of the commandment is hospitality. You open and you're inviting hospitality, so everybody's with everybody's tabernacles, and it's a community festival.
Yeah.
And today is even happier than expected.
Wonderful. Okay, let's continue on with the text, unless anyone has anything else to say before we do. Sandy, go ahead. Verse 4, top of the page.
Yep. Jonathan said to David, "Whatever you say, I will do for you." David said to Jonathan, "Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit at table with the king. But let me go that I may hide myself in the field till the third day at evening. If your father misses me at all, then say, 'David earnestly asked leave of me to run to Bethlehem, his city, for there is a yearly sacrifice there for all the clan.' If he says good, it will be well with your servant. But if he is angry, then know that harm is determined by him. Therefore, deal kindly with your servant, for you have brought your servant into a covenant of the Lord with you. But if there is guilt in me, kill me yourself, for why should you bring me to your father?" And Jonathan said,
Okay, let's pause there a moment. Again, there's little lines like this that I just think are so dramatic. If there is guilt in me, kill me yourself, for why should you bring me to your father? Like, I think this is setting up David as a very good dude. But it's a very simple thing. If this is the king's party and it's all the king's men, then he could very easily be killed, like be ambushed in such a place. So he sees the danger, even though this is like a form of Sabbath. Like there's the Sabbath once a week, and then there's the new moon once a month. So Cassandra, am I boring someone? This is what YT is made for? Make a video.
YouTube.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Cassandra is at a family gathering and said that at some point she might escape to join us, but wasn't sure. We'll see. Anything else that was noticed in there? Okay. It's the later bit which becomes much more controversial, so we will get there. So Sandy, continue reading for us.
Jonathan said, "Far be it from you. If I knew that it was determined by my father that harm should come to you, would I not tell you?" Then David said to Jonathan, "Who will tell me if your father answers you roughly?" And Jonathan said to David, "Come, let us go out into the field." So they both went out into the field. And Jonathan said to David, "The Lord, the God of Israel, be witness. When I have sounded out my father about this time tomorrow, or the third day, behold, if he is well disposed towards David, shall I not then send and disclose it to you?"
Can we pause 1 second? I would like Yoav's opinion on this. David uses the divine name repeatedly. David repeatedly swears and uses the divine name over and over again. He says, "As Hashem lives," and he uses God as a witness and uses the divine name as almost to call upon himself blessing or curse. And it seems to kind of be a given that not just a king, but an average person might do this. And Dawn is asking the significance of going out to the field. This may recollect Cain and Abel, but also because they go out to the field. But there's also David is going to use the distance of a bow shot soon in order to communicate something. Yoav, do you have any opinion on the use of the divine name as David seems to be using it?
What I read is that they are making a covenant between themselves. They are swearing. It is the yeah. So this is why he is mentioning. There are other people listening. I mean, before they went to there are people around, and so they're not saying things explicitly that we are making a covenant together, but the use of the word between them, they have just de facto made a covenant. And this is why they mentioned the name.
That is, you're absolutely right. It's in verse 8. For you have brought your servant into a covenant of Hashem with you. So absolutely, you're right. That this is covenant language. They are really, really quite bound to each other, and this will continue on even for generations. It's not just this one section.
I think it's a matter of face saving that Jonathan will not say he's part of the covenant because he's the son of the king. It is not for him to say it. People will be insulted. This is why David needs to do most of the talking, but it is agreed between them.
Yes. Okay, let's continue on. Sandy, would you start reading at verse 13?
But should it please my father to do you harm, the Lord do so to Jonathan, and more also if I do not disclose it to you and send you away, that you may go in safety. May the Lord be with you, as he has been with my father. If I am still alive, show me the steadfast love of the Lord, that I may not die. And do not cut off your steadfast love from my house forever, when the Lord cuts off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth. And Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, May the Lord take vengeance on David's enemies. And Jonathan made David swear again by his love for him, for he loved him as he loved his own soul.
Ooh, man, go ahead.
What I read in here is, as I said, the first act is David is making all the talking and people are listening. So Jonathan doesn't say his part. And then they go out privately to the field. And then Jonathan mentions the name and Jonathan says his part because it has to be said. So he says his part of the covenant. Now, the politics of it, generations afterwards, people have witnessed that event. It's an historical event that did happen. And people witnessed it. And people witnessed David saying his part. And people testified that Jonathan never said his part. This is why there was a claim that the covenant doesn't hold. This is why it's the story. When they went out privately, then Jonathan said his part.
Right. And the need for witnesses in the law. That's very interesting. Yeah. Continue. No, all done. Okay. Let me just mention one other thing. The language of it. The Lord do so to Jonathan. Where is it? Oh, may the Lord be with you as he has been with my father. This is so interesting because to some extent, Jonathan in his alliance with his father experiences the vengeance that is against Saul. Because Jonathan and Saul die the same day in the same battle. So Jonathan is opening himself up for that kind of destruction. But what his intention is this is going to save children of Jonathan from destruction, this covenant that he makes with David. Now we're going to go to, we're getting to the bit. Matt, you've been on mute for a while. Do you want to come off mute? Do you have anything you want to add or anything you were noticing along the way?
No, it's lovely. You guys are hitting points before I can even think of them. So
okay,
I'm sure I'll have a random thought later, but this is really nice so far.
Well, soon we have to talk about gay stuff, so maybe you'll want to throw in your opinion then.
Oh, great.
This is the chap. This is one of the. Sandy is utterly confused. Yoav has heard this argument before, I'm sure. Not to immediately spoil it.
Shaking my head at you, David.
Yes, and Cassandra's quite right. This is the second time it refers to as loving him as his own soul. Chezi, hello. He's wishing everyone a good afternoon. So that's lovely. Okay, Sandy, continue on.
Okay, are we at 18 still? Yeah.
Yes.
Then Jonathan said to him, "Tomorrow is the new moon, and you will be missed, because your seat will be empty. On the third day, go down quickly to the place where you hid yourself when the matter was in hand, and remain beside the stone heap. And I will shoot 3 arrows to the side of it, as though I shot at a mark. And behold, I will send the boy, saying, 'Go find the arrows.' If I say to the boy, 'Look, the arrows are on this side of you, take them,' then you are to come, for as the Lord lives, it is safe for you, and there is no danger. But if I say to the youth, 'Look, the arrows are beyond you,' then go, for the Lord has sent you away. And as for the matter of which you and I have spoken, behold, the Lord is between you and me forever."
Yeah, okay. This is excellent. I like the building up of the drama. Even the use of a weapon in order for it to be a signal. Like, you have to think about what that might mean, that he's hiding somewhere and the shots are being fired past him, right? We think of it only as a sign and not weapons are being involved in this sign. So I think this is building the tension of the scene. Sandy, continue this next section. 24.
David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon came, the king sat down to eat food. The king sat on his seat, as at other times, on the seat by the wall. Jonathan sat opposite, and Abner sat by Saul's side, but David's place was empty. Yet Saul did not say anything that day, for he thought, "Something has happened to him. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean." But on the second day, the day after the new moon, David's place was empty. And Saul said to Jonathan, his son, "Why has not the son of Jesse come to the meal either yesterday or today?" Jonathan answered Saul, "David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem. And he said, 'Let me go, for our clan holds a sacrifice in the city, and my brother has commanded me to be there. So now, if I have found favor in your eyes, let me get away and see my brothers. For this reason, he has not come to the king's table.'"
Look at that too. David's excuse is related to making sacrifice. So we've talked about the priorities of the king. David's highest priority is pleasing the Lord. And so it is even presented to Saul, like if there's going to be a good excuse, it will be a religious observation, even before the making oneself ritualistically unclean, right? Surely he's unclean. But now Saul it's kind of clear that there's why he's going to be upset. He does not care about what the purpose is, he planned something. So continue on.
May I have? Can I just?
Yeah. Go a second.
A little thing in here. I've always found this passage, that particular passage, really interesting because it sounds like there was some kind of ancestral rite or something, some sort of cultic observation that one would do in one's fatherland. That seems it was understood at that time, and we don't have a lot of clarity into what that was. Didn't need an explanation.
Matt,
I'm not writing this, but
you just triggered a couple of other things. When Absalom is scheduling to begin his rebellion, he also says, I have to make a local sacrifice. He says, I to make a sacrifice for the god of, I think it's like, he has to travel out of the city. He has to leave in order to do something, and it is a localized thing. So I wonder if it's attaching these two things. And also, the Samuel uses the excuse as a sacrifice to be how he anointed David as king in the first place. Repeatedly, the excuse of I just have to be in this area for a sacrifice is used in some form of rebellion, be that making a new king in a good way or rising up in a bad way against the current king.
That's really good. Yeah, that's significant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And some people have even said, like, you'll have this Catholic idea where there will be Saint Mary, it'll be like Mary of Guadalupe. And somehow that's different than Mary of Mount Carmel, even though it's still the exact same person. In the same way, you would have worship to God, but it's important, for instance, for Jacob to sacrifice at Penuel and at Bethel, right? Like the god of Bethel, the god of Penuel, like that becomes important. Okay. Let's continue on. Sandy, go.
Then Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan, and he said to him, You son of a perverse, rebellious woman, do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, neither you nor your kingdom shall be established. Therefore send and bring him to me, for he shall surely die.
Yoav, are these insults still used? In the Hebrew, is this it? Like, it just feels to me like this should be swearing. You son of a perverse, rebellious woman.
Ben Avat Mardut is, I know that it's very poetic and archaic. Nobody will say it in everyday language. But educated people in the right context may use it.
Yeah. Perverse, rebellious woman. Like, I think that it might be better translated as like a son of a cheating whore. Like, that seems to be what is being gotten at. To your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness. Like,
okay. Well, why is bring his mother to the story? Because this is what always happens in every court. You have a king, and the king will have several women, and the women will have several princes, and they will compete. I mean, there will always be open the question who is going to be the next king, and it will be one wife against the other, making all sorts of intrigue to secure the position of her son. And what Shaul is saying is, you're reflecting badly on your mother.
Yeah.
Probably I'm going to pick the next king from the son of another mother.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting too, the way mothers get brought in to insults as well, right? You're son of a bitch, right? Like it's got a little bit of that to it too.
Yeah, but
like
yes, but in this is a court with court intrigues. It's more meaningful than just well, Shaul was always saying he was a peasant. He didn't guard his language very much, but it was very weighty. What he was now doing, intentionally or not, is throwing his court into turmoil.
Yeah.
Is it reading too much into it to see? He says the mother's nakedness, but
yeah.
Is this almost a self-own? Slightly, is the text kind of implying?
Well, okay.
You know what I'm thinking.
Yes. So an incest, it could be, depending on how we understand idiom, to uncover your mother's nakedness would be to sleep with your father. To uncover your father's nakedness would be to sleep with your mother. So it could be taken as him saying, "You have screwed me."
Yeah, to the shame of me and your own shame. You know, is there kind of an interesting thing going on?
It's a weird kind of idiom, but it seems to me like if you were going to make a movie out of this, you have to make him swear like 4 times. Like, right? Like you've
emphatic.
Yeah. And in idiom of "you have screwed me." But again, the bringing in the mothers, and Yoav is absolutely right, because this is also in the succession after David. Solomon is chosen as king, and that's a choosing of which wife. Like this will be a thing, right? That's why there's a whole idea of bastards. You are a son, but you are not. The mother was not chosen by the father. That plays such an important role in inheritance.
And I have a comment about another word. The Hebrew, when Jonathan is saying that David went to see his brothers, the word is imalta, which is escape. He actually misspoke. He said David has escaped to see his brothers. He hasn't gone away. He escaped.
Yeah.
And this is how Shaul got so into it, because Shaul didn't have actually a reason to be so mad at Jonathan. At that point, Jonathan chose the wrong word, and that cost him.
Oh, this is so good. Yoav, you're helping the script for this get written. That's how I feel, because all of these little bits, it adds to the drama of this scene of one character saying something and it making the other character lose his mind. But it might be intentional, though, because the intention is, can I get Saul to freak out about your absence? Like it might be an intentional slip.
That's a good.
Yeah, to get him going. Sandy, continue on. $32.
Yep. Then Jonathan answered Saul his father, "Why should he be put to death? What has he done?" But Saul hurled his spear at him to strike him. So Jonathan knew that his father was determined to put David to death. And Jonathan rose from the table in fierce anger and ate no food the 2nd day of the month, for he was grieved for David, because his father had disgraced him.
Okay, Sandy, why does he throw the spear at him? Who else does Saul throw the spear at?
Well, he's thrown the spear at David.
That's right. And there's a joining together of these two characters. Like they make covenant that joins themselves. There will be this language which will be used that they are bound to one another. And so in the same way that Saul has sought to kill David, he now seeks to kill Jonathan. Yoav, you brought this up, that Saul may not have actually been a good warrior. It's like every single time he's in close proximity and he keeps on missing.
This time, I don't think he meant to kill Jonathan. To hit him. I mean, the word is to hit him. It doesn't necessarily mean to kill him. It could mean, but I think it is a father, spanking his son for misbehaving. This is why a king never carries a spear. A king will have a scepter. So if he strikes somebody, he can strike anybody he wants to, but to prevent accidents. Yeah,
that's a very good point. Okay, now we are going to get to the fun, controversial part. Well, I mean, all of this has been fun. I really appreciate what everyone's bringing forward. It's very good. Sandy, go ahead. 35.
In the morning, Jonathan went out into the field to the appointment with David, and with him a little boy. And he said to his boy, "Run and find the arrows that I shoot." As the boy ran, he shot an arrow beyond him. And when the boy came to the place of the arrow that Jonathan had shot, Jonathan called after the boy and said, "Is not the arrow beyond you?" And Jonathan called after the boy, "Hurry, be quick, do not stay." So Jonathan's boy gathered up the arrows and came to his master. But the boy knew nothing. Only Jonathan and David knew the matter. And Jonathan
pause 1 second. Pause 1 second. This happens in all languages, and we've lost it because we no longer have slaves. Na'ar means boy. It could just refer to someone who is unmarried, or it refers to a slave or a servant. Even in English, the word maid, a maid just refers to a virgin, right? Maiden, right? It means a young woman, but it then takes on the connotation of a slave or a worker, right? Which, Matt, you are in the southern United States. That is why calling a black person boy is a racial insult, because within all these cultures, like some people would have to hire themselves out as a servant when they're younger, and then they'll work up to a position of prominence. So the boy can be translated as slave or servant. There's words which are much more explicitly servant, words like Obed, but Na'ar is used several times as someone being a servant. So this idea that he has this little boy with him, it's not like he picks up this kid from the playground and says, "Hey, we're playing a game," right? It's his servant. Yoav, have I misrepresented that, or what do you think?
We don't get the exact structure of the society at that time. It's nothing like what it is today. It's nothing like it was in the US 100 years ago. It's a different society, and it's a role that you cannot find anywhere. There is a point when Avner, the King Saul, minister of the army, says, "Yishachaku ha'na'arim lefanenu," let the boys play before us. And it then means the young, inexperienced warriors. So I think this is a young, inexperienced warrior that is doing his training while being a sort of an escort or a guard or help to the prince, which is some kind like a slave, because you don't know how you would record whether it was compulsory or don't know the exact mechanism in which he was recruited.
His
Samuel,
or something.
His squire, like a squire.
Yeah. And Samuel warned against it. He said he will take your son and your daughters. but
Yeah.
it's not exactly slaves. He will take them to the army, and this is part of the army service for a young, inexperienced warrior.
Yeah. No, that's good. And even just so people know, the term esquire meant that you were the second son, because the first son has the position of prominence. The younger son would kind of be a backup or would be an assistant, right? So squire and esquire. If you've ever wondered what that means, if someone says like their full name Esquire, that means they're in a position, but not like a high position, right? Like, so these familial terms, it may be like he's learning the ropes kind of a thing, but the calling out, this guy has no idea what's happening. I just wanted to call attention to some of that stuff so that we can see what's being played with in the text. Sandy, verse 40. Continue reading.
And Jonathan gave his weapons to the boy and said to him, sorry, you moved it. Boy said to him, go and carry them to the city. And as soon as the boy had gone, David rose from beside the stone heap and fell on his face to the ground and bowed 3 times. And they kissed one another and wept with one another, David weeping the most. Then Jonathan said to David, go in peace, because we have sworn, both of us, in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord shall be between me and you, and between my offspring and your offspring forever. And he rose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city.
I must say, this seals any gossip that might occur in the next sentences. This seals it completely. They swear in the name of God. They definitely have some, I mean, they're not rabbis, but they definitely have some idea of what God is expecting of them in terms of sexual conduct. And what seals it, he talks about your seed and my seed. I mean, it's very clearly, you are going to get married and have children. I'm going to get married and have children, and our children will play together. This cannot be interpreted in any other way.
You say that, Yoav, like people care. I also, look. See, I'm glad I made you laugh. I'm really glad some of the things you brought forward, because it really does seem like they are making sure that it is known, very much known, one to another. And the compassion, especially because David will become the winner, the idea that David weeping the most, they kissed one another and wept with one another, David weeping the most. I think the purpose of this is to make sure that we see in the text that later on, David has no grudges against Jonathan. It's very, very important that this is established in the text, because you can imagine, especially as there's later divisions, that it becomes tribes. It becomes Benjamin versus Judah again. So to say there's no bad blood, I absolutely love you. I think that people can't take, so there's a reference also where David will say at Jonathan's funeral, how greatly I have loved you, Jonathan, more than the love of women, is the quote that people will take. And they will say that because of that, it's clearly a romantic love. I disagree. I think people don't understand what soldiers have been through. And this interpretation, it's not merely an acceptance of gay stuff that has brought this interpretation in. It's a losing of battle mentality. Because there used to be an idea that men had friends who they saw war with, and there was issues they could only speak to those friends with. Other men would not understand. These were guys who went through hell together, and they had a very special relationship that their wives would never understand. It might have some sort of...
My brother gave names to his children on the names of soldiers that fought with him and died. So if your friend in the army didn't make it, and he didn't come home, then you feel the obligation to name your sons after him.
And David will do exactly this. So the name is Jonathan, and he has a son named Nathan. He has a son named Nathan. It's not just Nathan the prophet. Some people connect Nathan the prophet to David's son Nathan, but he does exactly this. He names one of his children a version of Jonathan. Exactly what Yoav is saying. This honoring your best friend or honoring your fallen comrade. Beautiful. So no one thinks this is gay? Okay, that's good.
Well, it's
No.
Okay. So that it's not too easy. I completely agree. However, sexuality, pre-modern sexuality isn't just gay or straight anyway. And an argument could be made. I don't think it's the strongest argument. I think the strongest argument
right.
An argument could be made that they're expecting, they're planning, they're anticipating, they're looking forward to having children with women, and they have a sexual relationship. There's nothing outside of the ordinary in pre-modern relationships, particularly in the Iron Age, for that sort of situation to happen. However, that's not as strong as a case as what Yoav presented.
In Greek society, yes. If the two were Greeks, I would say yes, definitely, par for the course. And Jonathan probably had some sex with his boy. But those David and Jonathan were not Greek.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. I will say that so I mentioned this just in passing before. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, I know I just made Jason, who's watching, excited. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh has two dreams about Enkidu before he appears, like before they meet each other. And in one of the visions, he sees an axe, and it says he embraced it like he would a woman. I loved it like a woman. Okay. Some translations will literally say had sex, and the word axe. How do I explain this? If you refer to a woman as a farming implement, you might go, I don't understand what that means. Okay, what if that implement is a hoe? Okay, that word, that it's bizarre to us, but rake and hoe used to both be terms that referred to sexuality. And within the Epic of Gilgamesh, that is present in that he gets called something that could be taken as a sexual term. And then he has a second dream, and that dream, the word for star is also in the Babylonian, could be used as a sexual thing.
No, not in Hebrew. In Hebrew, you would use the term pocket or a jar. Or not,
that's PVK. This is the first time PVK's actually attended the Bible study.
What can I say? I got a little extra free time this week.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Is this
Michael Sartori?
We started talking about whether or not David and Jonathan were gay, and the whole group of them had to share their opinion.
We expect a holy kiss.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay. Well, have fun.
Oh,
enjoy the conference. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's funny. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Jason says, but perhaps David should have said no homo after. But the reason why I brought it up though is that with the Babylonians, you did have some of this stuff. There were in the land of Israel male cult prostitutes. Okay, Sandy, you do a spiel. Go ahead. You put your hand up.
Actually, I just scratched, but I agree with Yoav. This is not that. There are stories within the Bible that would allude to illicit sexual activity, but it would be framed as that. But when they are talking about good men, and the story is good men, in the context of a covenant between them and God, and death is involved, I think that you would really have to push your, you got to push hard at this one to make that context. That's not what I see.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think it is stretching and pushing, and people's inability to see male friendship as anything.
Apropos stretching, there is a story later when Yoav conquers Jerusalem, and the expression is that he touched the pipe, and people go mad with laughter about the possible explanation to the term "touch the pipe." I mean, the imagination really goes overboard with that pipe. Anybody who has any idea about the geography of Jerusalem and how you conquer Jerusalem, there are no two ways to interpret it.
Yeah, anyway, we will get to that passage eventually. Yoav obviously jumping there because it's his name. I don't think there's enough there. And I like comics, or I used to. And in a couple of comics, they would make, like in updated comics, they will make characters that were like sidekicks into one of them having into them being gay. And I think it's especially awful because it's actually saying that we can't deal with men being affectionate with each other. If one person is willing to die for the other person, it can't be platonic love. It just, like, people just don't understand what kind of love has energy behind it.
Yeah, just to seal the deal, anyone who would want to bring up what sexuality looked like in pre-modern cultures has to also, to be fair, recognize what friendship looked like in pre-modern cultures. And
right.
Male friendship was understood to be intimate and healthy. Those kind of exemplars existed across all kinds of cultures, including in Israel.
Well, and I don't think people have understood this either. It's in the ancient world, your wife was not your best friend. Like, my wife is my best friend. We have these intellectual like in so many of these situations, you get set up with someone. David will have multiple wives. It doesn't describe him having like a friendship with them the way that our current, like, since Romanticism, which shifts this idea, and I mean like the old style of Romanticism, it becomes more and more this like passionate idea of the relationships we have romantically, until now we believe that that's the kind of love that lays down life for one another, right? And we have difficulty imagining the love. Like, if you look at love stories, it is not the love story. It is very rare that it's the love of a parent for a child, or a child for a parent, or it's the same thing with Sam and Frodo, right? Self-sacrificial, servant-like love. everyone is just like, it's so gay. It's just like, it's just so childish.
That's Hollywood. I mean, that's really
Yeah.
just entertainment has taken over, and it's about money, and it's not about truth. It doesn't have to be 100 years ago this was true.
Yeah.
Like, I would. There are still people in marriages today where your marriage partner, there's like, there doesn't have to be something wrong in your relationship
Yeah.
for them to acknowledge that your best friend from kindergarten is still your actual best friend who has known them the longest and deepest. I mean, that's just a given.
Yeah.
It's and yeah, and I mean that even goes past seeing each other on a regular basis. I watched that with both my ex and with Jack, that like when my ex died, best friend who he got in grade 2 by whacking him with his cast on his arm. Like, how do you bond with your fellow man in grade 2? You smack him with a plaster cast, apparently. Friends forever. Hadn't seen him in years, and he shows up at his funeral. When Jack died, his best friend called to tell me. The level of pain in his voice was not one iota less than mine. I'd say it went farther even. He's carrying,
Wow.
60 years of friendship,
And have you guys seen in Fiddler on the Roof? It's like near the end, I think, of Fiddler on the Roof. You see this relationship between it's a Jewish man and his wife. Like he has multiple daughters. And near the end, they have a song where he is asking his wife if she loves him. Do you love me? And it's only by the end at first she says, what kind of a question is that? For 35 years, I've washed your clothes, I've cooked your meals, I've given you children. And he says, yes, but do you love me? And it's by the end of the song, they say yes, that they love each other. But it's only like, the idea is they've been together for 35 years. And this is when they find out that she actually loves him, because the kids are getting married for love. But that's such a foreign idea to previous generations, where you're getting set up by people. There's things that are done out of alliances and all these other things. So it actually doesn't take much for someone to say that they love a friend more than their wife, because people didn't have these kind of relationships that we expect as normal now, of loving your wife as your best friend.
Or they did, and you just didn't frame it the same way.
Right. Right. And Jan God can't handle it. Jan God is just, yeah, like, and it's one of those, Jan God needs all of the characters to be gay people doing psychedelics. That's what he needs in order to understand. Yanni, it's not. He thinks that it's the clubs in like the gay clubs where people are just doing ecstasy and hooking up with dudes. It's just not what's happening in the Bible. I'm sorry.
It's interesting. I had I was friends with a Russian Mennonite couple. That's kind of irrelevant, but it was interesting to me. I met through the deaf school. 24 foster kids. Their
This
youngest
guy has. I'm sorry, Sandy. This guy has too many descriptors now. He's a Russian Mennonite at a deaf school. This is okay.
No. They were not at a deaf school.
Okay.
They had for no reason they knew, they had 3 deaf children. So they worked with the agency that my son's with, and they took in foster children who nobody else would take. I met them when they were in their 70s. They were both almost 100 by the time that they passed. And he had a heart condition for the last 2 or 3 years of his life, couldn't even get out of bed to move, but she was getting Alzheimer's. And everybody kept expecting him to go. And it was not until they finally got her into a care home where he knew she would be safe that then he let his heart completely give out.
Right.
You know, he held on every breath and effort until he knew that she was safe. And within 2 weeks, he was gone. And that's how we used to say, hey, I love you. You know,
Yeah.
not all this other stuff, you know, so words have meaning, they hold meaning, but sometimes so does silence.
Yeah, and I think Cassandra's making a very good point. To be honest, I think we put too much in potential spouses. You're supposed to have more than one meaningful relationship. Guys, I think this conversation has been really good. I want to do a check-in with everyone on if there's anything else maybe reiterated from the text or anything that's kind of come up to mind. Matt, I'm going to start with you. Just check in with you on any ideas that have been popping in your head or any thoughts you're having.
No, I think that's. I think we thoroughly handled the most controversial topic, and I feel like we really addressed in really interesting ways all the other ones. So.
Yeah, man, I actually wish that if there was a real argument that it could be had. Instead, I just got Yawn God trolling. So, Yanni, thank you for giving us some pushback. I appreciate it. But
Yanni.
Yeah, I call him Yanni. That's become yeah. Yoav, any other ideas that might be kicking around?
No, just to say that I didn't come here to have an argument with anybody. I'm here to say yes and.
That's good. That's a concept in theater where they talk about not fighting your other actors. The only way we move on is by saying yes and. Sandy, any other thoughts for you? No? Okay. Well, guys, if we go any further, we have to get into other texts. So I think we covered it enough. Thank you very much. I thank you very, very much for coming out this week. Special blessings go on Yoav as he's partying this week. And to Hezi too, because he can hear me. So bless you guys as you're celebrating.
Absolutely.
That's all I got. Next week we're talking about David eating showbread. So I'm very excited for that one because there's a whole bunch of different interpretations of that, and it gets quoted a lot in the New Testament. So we'll see how it goes. Hezi is partying so hard that we got 3 of these guys going. And Young God gives me the train. So yes, we're done. Okay, goodbye, guys. That's perfect. Bye.
That's funny. Oh my gosh, that's